real bad guys to find, so let's get right to our first case. He's 25-year-old Frank Nason, and he's wanted by the FBI for 2 execution-style murders in California. Nason is a reputed member of a drug trafficking ring. The FBI in San Francisco says he had 2 people killed because he suspected that they were government informants. Nason frequents strip clubs and loves life in the fast lane. Well, Nason, let's see how you like life in the slow lane, behind bars, because the manhunt for you starts right now.
It's Saturday, May 1st, 1999. To date, your tips have led to the capture of 563 fugitives. Tonight on America's Most Wanted, America Fights Back.
She's beautiful.
For this Eastern European model, America was a dream come true. But for others,
he hit my face from back, so broke my teeth, my face.
Tried to escape, but they watched the door.
they came here to be models, but they were sold as sex slaves to the highest bidders. Tonight, our camera takes you inside their world and puts you on the hunt for their evil masters. Also tonight, the country was shocked to find out Susan Smith killed her own kids. But now, could it be happening again in Texas?
Went down into the creek and they found the bodies of 2 young children.
A brother and sister are murdered and their mother disappears for days. Now she's back and cops think they can close the case. And the courts found them guilty. Now, instead of facing a hard time, they're facing a trial by fire.
Yeah, I looked at her dead in the eyes. I said, don't worry, ma'am, I'll save your boy. I turned around and ran to the fire.
Tonight, you'll find out how one prison system fights fire with felons. Because tonight, America's Most Wanted is where America fights back. Now, from our crime center in Washington, D.C., John Walsh.
Good evening. At this time last week, we sent you looking for Tina Cornelius. Her 2 little children had been murdered, and when cops went looking for her, she had vanished. But this week, there's been a new development in the case, and our Kate Sullivan's been following the story. Kate?
John, last week investigators had a big question to answer. Was Tina Cornelius another victim of her children's killer, or was she the killer herself? Tonight, they're one step closer to finding the answer.
It was a mystery of horrifying proportions. 2 toddlers found dead, abandoned in a shallow creek, and no one could find their mother.
It was really a shock, and to just throw them away like a piece of trash. It's just sickening.
This lonely creek lies in Hutto, a tiny town outside of Austin. The local sheriff's department has been grappling with this tragic case for almost 2 weeks now. The shock of finding the bodies was followed by the news that no children had even been reported missing in the area. Child care workers in Austin recognized them as 4-year-old Amanda Miller and 3-year-old Dominic Cornelius. They were last seen with their mother, Tina Cornelius, Wednesday, April 14th. But autopsy reports showed they were alive at least 4 more days.
We want anyone that saw these kids from the 14th all the way up until the 18th to give us a call. We need to know where these kids were.
More confusing, what was Tina doing during those 4 days? She never reported the children missing, and witnesses say she was out partying that weekend. Despite that, detectives didn't believe she killed her children.
We think that she's afraid to come forward. She may be in danger herself also from the person who might have taken these children's lives.
However, Tina is hardly your average mom. She makes her living stripping at this club in Austin.
She's a very outgoing person. She's a charmer as far as talking to men, getting just about anything that she wants to just by talking and getting close to a man.
Tina's mother, Jean, has been forced to deal with her loss publicly. She says, yes, Tina was troubled, but those days were behind her.
She's had her rough times, good times. She's straightened out her life. The 2 babies were her life.
But here's what didn't make sense. The manager of the strip club told America's Most Wanted off camera that the day after the children were found murdered, Tina showed up for work as usual and was in a cheerful mood. It was that night she disappeared. Then late this week, as Jean was preparing to bury her grandchildren, detectives finally found Tina in Corpus Christi. As they listened to her story, their faith in her innocence faded. She told detectives an almost unbelievable tale that her children had fallen into the creek, she thought they were alive, and she walked away.
We filed the paperwork to charge Tina Marie Cornelius with abandoning children. It's a 2-count charge. Both counts are second-degree felonies and carry from 2 to 20 years in the state penitentiary.
This still leaves a lot of questions. Whether anyone else was involved, whether anyone would be charged with the murders of Amanda and Dominic. Clearly, the entire truth has not emerged yet, and it may not without your help. If you know anything that can help detectives finally close this tragic case, call 1-800-CRIME-TV.
Thanks, Kate. That's a tough, heartbreaking case. Now, when college student Kristen Smart disappeared from San Luis Obispo, California, the cops thought it was an isolated case. But when 2 other co-eds who looked a lot like Kristen went missing from the same town, no one knew what to think. Now it looks as though the pieces of this mysterious puzzle are finally coming together. Arlena Nozizwe is in California with the latest.
It's been a small town's biggest fear. Last week, the worst possible outcome was confirmed with the news that 2 of the girls, Rachel Newhouse and Andrea Crawford, had been found dead. Police say the remains of the missing college students were found near the secluded home of 33-year-old Rex Allen Krebs. They've been asphyxiated.
Based on our findings and evidence to date, we believe Rex Krebs is responsible for the deaths of both Rachel Newhouse and Andrea Crawford.
We believe that Mr. Krebs acted alone in each of these cases, and there is no evidence at this time which would indicate that he is responsible for other homicides or crimes in this area.
The convicted rapist had a past that was as dark as Rachel and Andrea's futures were bright. Krebs served 10 years of a 20-year term and was released 2 years ago and was under what's described as strict supervision.
He needed to let us know where he was at all times, couldn't travel 50 miles outside the area, no possession of weapons, no alcohol.
A campus newspaper says Krebs often hung around with college kids. I spoke with the students who says she saw him around town and thought he was creepy.
Kept my distance.
You're saying he's creepy not because you know what he's suspected of now, but he just seemed creepy?
Oh, yeah. Has empty eyes. Yeah, just someone you stay away from.
Krebs was taken into custody March 20th after his parole officer, David Zaragoza, made a surprise visit and found alcohol and a simulated weapon. Investigators say that officer also found an item in the house. It's not been identified that's been linked to the girls' disappearances. In a published jailhouse interview, Krebs all but confessed, calling himself a monster who should be put to death.
I'm sure there is a sense of relief in this town because they caught the person that did those 2 crimes, but still there could be another person out there right now.
On this weekend night here in San Luis Obispo, you can still find folks out and about having a good time, although if you scratch the surface, it's clear they'll never be the same.
As tragic as it is for the families and everything and the friends, it's kind of a good thing to make everyone aware that we're not as safe as we think it is out here.
If you look around town, you see all the posters and you see a lot of the concerned citizens and things, and I think it, in a strange way, brought the community closer together.
Fresh flowers decorate makeshift memorials set up in honor of Rachel and Andrea. A small town remembers, but it's not forgotten 19-year-old Kristen Smart.
Love you, wish you were here, bye.
She vanished May 25th, 1996. Investigators say Krebs has not been linked to her disappearance because he was behind bars at the time. So while authorities believe they've solved 2 cases, they still don't know what happened to Kristen. If you know anything about the disappearance of Kristen Smart, please call 1-800-CRIME-TV.
Coming up next, at Churchill Downs, one person knew that the favorite horse had no chance of winning.
Problems for him, something is amiss.
Just wait till you hear how cops say he fixed the race.
I've seen every set of circumstances, but never anything as malicious as this. That's a dirty deed.
Now, the race is on to find him. And later...
Watch it!
These aren't just any firefighters. They're convicts.
It was worth going to prison to save that boy's life. A few years of my life was worth giving him the rest of his life back.
Now, instead of doing time, they're doing the right thing. Find out why.
The Kentucky Derby is the most prestigious horse race in the world, and the 125th running of the Derby went in the history books today. Our next fugitive is also a part of Kentucky horse racing history for pulling off one of the most brazen horse racing scams ever. When it comes to horse racing, there's nothing more prestigious than Churchill Downs in Louisville, Kentucky. No one knew at the time, but this 1997 race was fixed. It's impossible to tell from this video. The answer to how it was fixed was right under the horse's nose. Actually, it was right in its nose. Investigators found that someone had stuffed little pieces of sponge in the horse's nostrils to slow him down. Investigators say that someone was William Michael McCandless.
I think he's a bum. I think he's probably a loser, somebody that's probably never, ever really worked very hard in his life, never aspired to do anything beyond make a quick buck.
Long before McCandless wreaked havoc on the racing industry, his aspirations were to follow the family tradition.
His granddaddy run horses, and his uncle was Billy Thompson that used to be a jockey. He rode with the big-time jocks. He was a young boy that had dreams of having race horses.
McCandless switched gears at age 19 and became one of the few, the proud, the Marines. He served 2 years in Vietnam and returned home to mooch off his mother. His friends say McCandless wasn't interested in making a living. Instead, he gambled away what little money he did have.
He liked to study the racing forms because that's the kind of the racing man's Bible each day, you know, and he did like to gamble.
Another friend, who we'll call Jack, doesn't want to be identified. He says McCandless knew how to talk the talk.
Well, I knew he lied so much I really didn't know whether to believe him or not. He's fidgety, he's always patting his foot and got his legs crossed and smoking a cigarette.
Jack says McCandless had a lifelong pattern of losing.
Well, he always thought he knew what he was doing. When he'd have a bunch of money, it wouldn't be very long before the racetrack had it all because he'd put it right through the windows. I don't never know of a time they'd ever come out of a racetrack winners.
Then in 1977, this nobody became something of a somebody. McCandless made huge headlines after stealing Fran Peluche, the pregnant mare carrying the colt from the famous horse Secretariat.
This is the area where the wire was cut right down the post here. The board was removed, and from that area, that point, the mare was removed from the field. The wire was mended back around the post. Then the mare was taken in between the two fences, walked approximately maybe 500 feet to the end of the double fence, led to a point where she was loaded, apparently loaded into a trailer and hauled away.
It was a big risk with zero payoff. An informant fingered McCandless. That led to a nationwide manhunt. McCandless caved to the pressure and surrendered. He jumped bail before his trial and remained on the run for 3 long years, till he was busted in a federal farm equipment theft ring in Nashville. He served 3 years in prison on various charges, and by 1986, McCandless was released. That's when investigators believe he came up with the bright idea of sponging.
These are sponges. They're everyday type sponges, and they've been prepared and trimmed to fit into this horse's nostrils. A horse breathes through his nose only. He doesn't ingest any air through his mouth. Horses obviously require, as human athletes do, the ability to ingest a large amount of air in an athletic contest. So you can see, if I were to place this in this horse's nostril, add it with the second sponge in the other nostril, his ability, you can see he's stressed right now, his ability to ingest air is obviously impacted.
This is one of the races at Churchill Downs where the favored horse, Class O Lad, was sponged. Watch closely.
Problems for Class O lad. He has dropped all the way out to last, and problems for him, something is amiss. He's being eased on the far turn. The half in 40...
It had stressed him out immensely. In order to care for him, it was basically almost 24-hour care.
After 3 months, Class O lad couldn't take the pain anymore, and he had to be put down.
It was awful. It didn't need to have happened. And I've taken care of horses all my life. I've seen every set of circumstances you probably can see, but never anything as malicious as this.
They're off. But Class O lad wasn't the only horse sponged. The FBI says a total of 4 horses were sponged in 2 years. Thankfully, the other thoroughbreds survived. An informant once again led agents to the accused culprit, William Michael McCandless. Last May, McCandless was indicted on charges related to race fixing.
Obviously, if you're able to impact on 1, 2, or more horses in a particular race, it's much easier to determine who might be the ultimate winner in that race, or at least who won't win.
But the million-dollar question is, what exactly did McCandless gain from sponging?
We have studied the betting patterns of the races from facilities here in Kentucky and from the facilities at simulcast locations, and we have yet to determine a race where there was a sponge torch, where there was a significant betting pattern to indicate a large amount of money being made on a bet.
McCandless may not have made a lot of money, but he did gain notoriety. It's a scam worthy of a Dick Francis novel. He's been writing horse racing whodunits for 40 years.
Horse racing is a good subject for mystery writers because there's always some little bit of jiggery-pokery going on.
None of the Dick Francis mystery novels involve sponging. He says it's a peculiar method of race fixing from the 30s, and a cruel one at that.
No one wants to see someone doing a dirty deed like William McCandless had done, putting sponges up horses' noses. That's a dirty deed, and I hope it'll never become popular.
And so now the race is on to find William Michael McCandless. The purse for his arrest and conviction is $50,000. Agents believe McCandless is probably hanging around a racetrack. He wears dark prescription sunglasses, smokes Marlboro cigarettes, and fidgets. So help us bring in McCandless tonight.
If anyone knows anything about this case, ring 1-800-CRIME-TV.
Next up, the latest on our developing cases. So let's go back to Kate Sullivan at the update desk for the details.
John, tonight's update roundup starts with the man cops think could turn into the next Andrew Cunanan. The good news is you're starting to close in on this guy. The man with the movie star looks and the unpredictable temper is Percy Froman. Police say this street hustler has already killed one man in Birmingham, Alabama, and viciously attacked another victim in Tyler, Texas. We received more than 40 tips on Froman, and cops say they are strongly focusing on the states from Texas to Florida. So a special alert to our viewers in that area.
We got a father-son who sat in jail.
Remember Mac Buckley? He's the flamboyant lawyer from Connecticut who became a federal fugitive. Authorities say that as much as $1 million that Buckley was overseeing had disappeared, and so had Buckley. Well, last week he reappeared at the state police station in Hartford to turn himself in. Authorities say pressure from America's Most Wanted contributed to Buckley giving himself up. We thought we also had Luis Lopez. He's the man wanted for questioning in a 1996 double murder in Coral Gables, Florida. We were excited when we received this picture of a man arrested in Florida. Police there thought he looked a lot like our fugitive, and we had to admit the resemblance was noticeable. But one thing didn't match, the fingerprints. It was the wrong man. Now we're back to square one in our search for Lopez. Luis Lopez is only wanted for questioning in that case, but police are confident that if they can find Lopez, they can find the killer of those two innocent people. So we really need to locate him tonight. And we have one more update, this one on the most controversial murdered child case in the country, the JonBenet Ramsey case. Carol McKinley is in Colorado with the latest. Carol?
The grand jury investigating the murder of JonBenet Ramsey has been at this case, working hard for more than 7 months now. It's been nearly 2.5 years since JonBenet's murder, but the big news this week is prosecution sources tell me the case is solved. A decision on a possible indictment might be handed down by Mother's Day. Attorneys for the Ramseys have been trying to work out a contingency plan for Patsy Ramsey, should she be the one named in that indictment. They're trying to avoid the media frenzy. Meanwhile, sources tell me the Ramseys' attorney sent a letter to the Boulder District Attorney asking that their clients be brought before the grand jury. They claim it's unfair the Ramseys haven't been allowed to tell jurors what they know about the death of their little girl. I talked with Patsy Ramsey's sister the other day. Pam Paw says if Patsy, her sister, doesn't get to go before the grand jury and tell what she knows, and she gets indicted, Pam Paw herself is going to come to Boulder and have the prosecuting attorney, Michael Cain, for lunch. Kate, back to you.
Now, obviously, there's a lot more to come on this story. Carol's going to stay on the case, and together, we'll keep you up to date as the story develops. John?
Thanks, Kate. Now, we've got a lot more bad guys to catch, so stay right where you are.
Coming up next.
It's now enriched with new witness information.
She was the #1 TV crime fighter in England, and someone wanted her dead.
Jill has helped the police over many years in appeals to catch criminals. And it's a tragic irony that we find ourselves here today to appeal for information about her murder.
Who killed the host of Crime Watch UK? We want to find out tonight. And
hold there, shots fired, shots fired.
Cops say he's a little man who's causing big trouble.
I felt one go by on my left side. I felt one hit me.
The ambulance, officer down.
Tonight, you can cut this accused cop shooter down to size.
Was shocked by the murder of a famous TV personality. Even the Queen herself sent condolences. Well, tonight, we're joining the case because here at America's Most Wanted, we consider the victim one of our own.
Down, fast, and
Her
early.
name was Jill Dando, popular and beautiful television personality. Described as one of the most recognizable faces in British TV, Jill hosted Crime Watch UK, a monthly crime show which has caught over 600 fugitives.
It's information.
She had done a huge amount, personally, in the fight against crime.
But this week, her voice was silenced. On Monday, she was murdered in front of her London home by a gunman who fired off one bullet. No one heard the shot, but police say there are plenty of witnesses.
You heard a scream, and that was it. And obviously, we didn't realize until now what happened.
But no one saw the suspect well enough to come up with a composite. Police say a well-dressed man in his late 30s or early 40s was seen running from Jill's home with a mobile phone. They're not sure whether that man is the killer, but police searched the entire area for clues. Cops say this may be the work of a stalker. Last year, Jill received letters and phone calls from an obsessed fan, though he's not suspected in this attack. Police also believe her killing might be revenged by Serbs after Jill taped a pro-Albanian public service announcement.
Jill has helped the police over many years in appeals to catch criminals. And it's a tragic irony that we find ourselves here today to appeal for information about her murder.
Sadly, Jill was murdered just 5 months before her wedding. If you know anything about this horrific shooting, please call our hotline now at 1-800-CRIME-TV. Now, most people don't realize that Crime Watch UK has been on the air a lot longer than America's Most Wanted. It was one of our main predecessors, and in fact, if it weren't for that show, we might not even be on the air at all. I know the time and dedication that Jill Dando put into her job and how important she was to making her part of the world a better, safer place. I also know how dangerous a job it can be. It's absolutely essential that Jill Dando's killer is brought to justice. For all of us who fight against crime, she was a member of our family. Now, let's try and get a handle on a couple of fugitives right here at home. John Turchin has tonight's APB.
Well, John, it was 7 years ago this week that the Rodney King verdict sparked riots in Los Angeles. The violence and ill will divided the city along racial lines. Well, since then, many people have worked on the strained relationships, but it took the death of one businesswoman to really show the community what togetherness means.
One who made a difference, a positive difference, should become another tragedy, another victim of violence.
The woman being mourned by hundreds of people of all races is Chong Bok Hong, known affectionately as Mama. She ran this store, the 54th and Van Ness Market, and everyone knew her for her kindness. how she often gave food and medicine on credit to people in need. Now everyone misses her, even the cops who patrolled the beat.
Mrs. Hong was a very important part of that community, and when we lost her, we lost a lot. We didn't just lose a store owner, we lost our mama is what we lost.
Here's what happened. At the family market on the morning of February 3rd, the Hongs were attacked by a robber in the parking lot. There was a struggle. Mama's son Edward was shot in the leg. Mama was shot in the back. She died instantly. The attackers took off in a red Trans Am, which they abandoned a few blocks away. Within days, the police picked up the getaway driver, Pablo Hernandez. Now they're looking for the man believed to be Mama's shooter, Juan Ramon Carlos. Juan Carlos usually wears his hair long, and he has a large nose. And police believe his real name may actually be Eladio Roman. If you know where he is tonight, please, for the community of South Central, make that call. James Bohanna stands just over 5 feet, but law enforcement officials say he's as dangerous as a wild elephant.
343 got a foot chase.
343 is in a foot chase.
Officer Chris Redis of the Kansas City Police Department knows all too well how dangerous Bohanna can be.
And I'm walking down through here, get my flashlight out, and I was kind of careful to come around here to look in this alleyway. Didn't see anything. And I looked back over my shoulder, and he's standing up by the shingles, shooting down at me, gangster style.
Hold there, shots fired, shots fired.
I felt one go by on my left side, a couple hit the pavement and came up and got me in the shin, and then I felt one hit me in the foot.
The ambulance, officer down.
Officer Redis was lucky to be alive, but cops say he's not the only officer who put his life in danger pursuing Bohanna. In Fairview Heights, Illinois, Officer Charles Beiersdorfer tried pulling Bohanna over.
He immediately turned right and started to take off from me at a high rate of speed. He kept going, and eventually I believe he was clocked at in excess of 100, 130 miles an hour. He came down the road, and he struck the sign up there. Once he hit the sign, it became embedded underneath his car, and his car moved to the right wherein he struck this traffic sign. After that, the car collided with the Blazer, and at that point he bolted out of the vehicle and fled from the scene.
And police officers have been looking for Bohanna ever since. Bohanna has a long criminal record, most of which reveals his violent nature. Remember, Bohanna stands only 5'2", but he's extremely dangerous. If you know where he is tonight, call 1-800-CRIME-TV.
Get a load of this rap sheet. Theft, armed robbery, aggravated battery, resisting arrest, firearm possession. Bohanna is one dangerous guy, and we need to find him tonight. If you want more information on Bohanna or any of our other fugitives, you can go to our website at amw.com. John?
Thanks, John. Now, tonight, a little girl is missing, and it's going to take all of us to find her. So please pay close attention to this alert. Police in Montreal, Canada need your help tonight to find little Jolene Riendeau. The 10-year-old was last seen April 12th, rollerblading in her Point St. Charles neighborhood at around 6 that night. Police have launched a massive search for the little girl, but there are few clues. If you know anything about the disappearance of Jolene Riendeau, please call us tonight. We can take tips in French.
Up next.
I found this advertisement in the newspapers, and it sounded really promising.
They were promised a better life in America, but instead they were forced into sexual slavery.
Food would be delivered, telephone got cut off, and room turned to prison.
And the men accused of selling them into bondage are walking free tonight.
She's hot, she's sexy, and she's got the look.
She's beautiful.
She's 26-year-old Nadia Ozdorovska, a mother and a wife with a promising modeling career. For Nadia, this is a dream come true. After all, she's from the Eastern European country of Ukraine, where modeling is just a dream.
I love America because I can express myself.
That's exactly what she's doing on this Chicago-based website. She's model of the month for a lingerie company, and she's the envy of her friends back home. Images like these are what lure other Eastern European women to the U.S. Women like Natasha, Tatiana, and Sasha. Most of these women are afraid to show their faces, but brave enough to share their stories that started with the innocent dream of freedom in the U.S.
And one time I see advertising, say, woman who like work in New York. It's like babysitter and housekeeper. Call in this phone number.
I found this advertisement in the newspapers, and it sounded really promising.
I thought I will go here where South Beach is a big center for modeling. I will be a model.
But they ended up naked, beaten, and worst of all, working as sex slaves.
We end up in the hotel room. We basically been raped.
I come in his apartment, I take off my dress and make sex with him. He pay me. Only I'm doing this because I'm scared for my family in Russia.
I hated the job because I hated to be a sexual object. I just felt that I was misled. I just felt that I didn't know how to get my passport back.
He beat my face from faucet. So broke my teeth, my face.
We tried to escape, but they watched the door. Food would be delivered, telephone got cut off, and room turned to prison.
Their prison was run by the vicious Russian mafia.
They are killing machines. They know the system. They are invisible, untouchable. They're like a virus. They're all over.
Investigators say the powerful Russian mob is smuggling thousands of Eastern European women into American cities. And law enforcement is trying to get a handle on this new sex slave trade.
We're seeing an emergence of a huge problem. It's like trying to figure out how to get an elephant out of a small shop. It's a difficult situation.
The smuggling problem is so enormous that agents estimate the sex slave industry is putting $7 billion a year into the pockets of the Russian mob. The women have become the ultimate pawns in an international game of sex, money, and politics.
A lot of these women come from countries where the economies have collapsed. If they do have a job, it may pay $20 to $50 a month. A lot of these gangs tell these women they can make $200 to $300 a day or even more.
Instead, they get deeper into debt and end up living under horrific conditions. Agents say most of the sex slave operations are run through American strip clubs, where the underworld thrives. It's humiliating and degrading. Many of the women are treated like animals. Sometimes they're even kept in stalls. That's literally what happened in one New York City peep show. With our hidden camera, we went undercover, and this is what we found. A customer passes money to a girl in a tiny booth where she must perform for as much money as she can get.
All of us were sex slaves. None of us wanted to do it.
But they were forced to, until agents got their first big break and put an end to a major sex slave ring in Times Square. They say the Russian mob made a fortune supplying young captive girls to the peep show.
In these peep shows, customers were permitted to reach into the stage area where the girls were dancing, and they were able to touch them and grope them for various prices.
It's disgusting. I was 19 years old. I still had my dreams. I was naive in a way. You know, I was naive about men. You still dream about the prince and white horse. And then you are in the peep show.
These peep show dancers are smiling because they were finally being freed instead of arrested during the raid. The convicted ringleaders were Larry Ruck and Milan Lahanik. Agents used the backdoor approach to nab these guys. Visa fraud.
We're not actually going out walking the streets and busting prostitutes, but we are monitoring the activity through the embassies. This is very similar to the way Al Capone was caught with income tax evasion.
Using this white-collar crime approach, agents got on the trail of another alleged sex slave ringleader, Sergei Charuchiny. The trail led them to his Chicago home, where they found 5 Latvian women held captive.
The women were threatened with physical harm. They were not allowed to leave the apartment unescorted. One of the women was forced, she was slammed into a wall and received a severe head injury. One of the women was beat with a pair of rollerblades.
Agents say once again the women were scared for their lives. They did what they were told, including stripping in several Chicago nightclubs. But first they had to learn. Agents say Cherukchiny used movies to teach them exotic dancing.
Cherukchiny rented 2 videotapes, striptease and showgirls, and these videotapes were shown to the women so that they would learn how to perform as nude dancers.
While allegedly running the sex slave ring, Cherukchiny worked as a cabbie. One fellow driver believes it was all a front.
He was not making money, just only driving cab. He never shared with me personally. But the way he looked and the way he just behaved, you know, and just, he was different from anybody else.
Agents thought so too. They closed down his operation, but he'd already fled. So this is where you come in. Agents suspect Cherukchiny still could be in the U.S. or Canada, possibly running another sex slave ring or driving a cab. Agents want to bring Cherukchiny to justice. And so does Nadia. Remember our successful Ukrainian model? Well, catching Cherukchiny is personal to her. She lives just 5 miles from where he kept the women captive.
He do very horrible, illegal business. I think he should be arrested. And if you know anything about this case, please call 1-800-CRIME-TV.
Up next, a convict faces trial by fire.
She said, my son is trapped up on this cliff and he has Down syndrome. I looked at her dead in the eyes and I said, you know, don't worry, man, I'll save your boy.
How he went from zero to hero.
April 17th, they suspect foul play. John has a Tasmanian devil tattoo on his arm. Call if you can help. Percy Froman is wanted for murder in Alabama. Police in Florida want to question Luis Lopez. They believe he may have information about a double murder in Coral Gables. Juan Carlos is a suspect in a Los Angeles murder. James Bohanna is wanted for shooting a cop. Officers say Bohanna shot an officer in Kansas City last year. John Slarb is missing from Waldorf, Maryland. He was last seen on April 15th. 10-year-old Jolene Riondou is missing. She was last seen on April 12th in Montreal. Federal agents are looking for Sergei Cherukchiny. They say he was the leader of a sex slave ring in Chicago. And if you want more details on any of our cases, you can join us on our website at amw.com. We can even take your tips there. Next week, we'll have what has to be one of the most terrifying bank robberies of all time. This bank manager knew the risks of her job, but she never expected that trouble would follow her home. She's forced to become a human time bomb, rob her own bank, and deliver the money. And if she makes one false move, it could cost her her life. You can help crack that case next Saturday night. So we'll see you then. I'm John Walsh. Thanks a lot for watching. And remember, you can make a difference.